Hello and welcome to a new episode of The Bike Show, which, as you can probably tell, is happening on a Sunday morning from this melodious racket going on behind me. In this episode, we ride bikes without pants, we check on the progress of hero motorcycles in South Africa, and we take a look at some of the latest biking news. That, however, is all after this, a ride on perhaps the finest middleweight sport bike ever made.
You might recognize the shape of the Ducati behind me. You should. It's the most iconic motorcycle shape ever. Some people might argue this with me, but they're just plain wrong.
To prove a point, let's examine the looks of motorcycles at the time. In 1994, when this shape was first released, superbikes looked like this, and this, and this, and finally this. Then Ducati go and release this look, and the world changed. Of course there's a problem. You see, I've never ridden a 916, 996, 998 or any of the other variants in this look. I absolutely love them, but I've never actually ridden one, and I will continue to refuse to do so.
I mean, I was 12 when this look was unveiled, and not only that, Carl Fogarty then took this look to World Championship victory. How do you think that plays on a hormone-ridden 12-year-old mind?
Of course, the effect continues to this day.
You see, to me in 1994, the 916 represented all the best parts of Mick Jagger, Pamela Anderson and Gandhi, all mixed into one. No real-life motorcycle could ever live up to what I've got in my mind. So, as they say, don't meet your heroes.
But you see, this is not a 916. It's a 748. A 748R, to be exact. They say never meet your heroes, but they say nothing about meeting their younger brother.
Okay, here we go. Look at this. Okay, so it's the R model, therefore it's limited numbers. This is number 287, which means they built 286 of them before this, so hopefully they got it right by this one. Let's go. Oh wow, look at this. Like proper old school. Look at the clocks. And they actually are clocks. I mean, they're round and sort of clocky. And they use this weird foam. I don't know why, but that's just typical sort of Ducati. They were known for this sort of foam stuff around it. Look at the key. Now, everywhere else the key was on the sort of yoke sort of here. It looked ugly. They tuck it away inside here, inside the tank. And then there's this. That's a steering damper. Now, steering dampers from those days were like, ooh, you know, not many bikes had them. You had to be proper racy. And they displayed it proudly over here. Sure, shall we start it up? Stand it up. Key on. Oh, listen to that. That's a Ducati sound. This Ducati sound. They got that very specific sound. Oh, even the 748 has that sound. And you can hear the dry clutch. Wait, listen when I pull on the clutch. You can hear the difference. Do you hear that? Let's go.
In many ways, the 748 is much the same as the 916. In fact, the only differences between the two is that the back wheel is a 180, not a 190, and the bore and stroke within the cylinders are a little smaller. And that's it. Otherwise, it's exactly the same.
But it's still not a 916, so I still haven't met my hero.
More so, the R version is the special sports production model with titanium conrods and titanium valves, something unheard of in street bikes in those days. And because of that, it was able to push 106 horsepower.
And 106 is a good deal for the time. I mean, 600s were mostly not really pushing much more than 100 horsepower at the time. What I love about this, above all, it's the noise it makes. I mean, have a listen. It's like this slow, kind of lazy sort of grrr. Incidentally, this gearbox works magnificently. I know there's this old thing of old Italian motorcycles struggling with gearboxes, but I've found every gear every time, no false neutrals. I can hit neutral when I want a neutral, and I don't hit a neutral when I don't want a neutral. It's magnificent. It's so entertaining, and that clutch, just full of life and full of energy. It's just, I can't put it to like nominal terms, but yes, full of life, full of energy.
The frame is of course the long-standing traditional Ducati steel trellis design, and the R version features the latest for the time Öhlins suspension.
Weirdly, this bike feels heavy, and that is actually a good thing, because you kind of can either have a light tip-in motorcycle or a stable motorcycle. And when you're riding with a V-twin like this one, where you're using the power through the corner, you want the bike to be stable. I mean, yeah, let's have a look at this corner. Oh, it's solid as a rock. A bit of work to get it into the corner, and then once you're there, carry it, sing. Corner again. Yeah. You see, then you can use the throttle through the corner. But the big 4-cylinders, I mean, they need to be light to tip in, but it's okay in the middle of the corner because you're not really going to use the throttle. You're going to stop, turn, go. It can turn in light and not be as stable. This can be heavier, but needs to be stable in the corner. And it is stable, extremely stable. I kind of wonder, I mean, the suspension on this thing feels so good. What if the suspension people have been doing all these years? Why does this feel so good? They've been lying to us. They just give it a different name, different sticker on the shocks, and then just sell it to us. Look, it's new and fancy. Ooh. The brakes don't feel as good though, I'll admit. I could use some more stoppage. It's 20 years old, give it a break.
There's one more thing to consider with this model that separates it from the newer Ducatis.
And this bike is extra special because it was made by Ducati. What I mean by that is a lot of modern factories outsource the manufacturing of their components to other more specialist factories, who then send it to the main factory that's more of an assembly plant than a factory. But anyway, that's actually a good thing, because wouldn't you rather the electronics on your motorcycle was made by specialists like Bosch than some guy named Giuseppe who went to college and did electronics?
Whereas the 748 was built before the Ducati factory started doing that.
So this is a genuine Ducati. Genuine Ducati, built from the ground up by Ducati. You'll find that the modern bikes are a lot more reliable because they've got components that are built by the same people who do like Audi and all of that kind of stuff. They're genuinely good stuff. However, you'd think this thing would break down a lot. This bike feels perfect. This exact bike is perfect in every way. Someone either really looked after it or it's not living up to its stereotypes. But you know, there are a few problems, such as the side stand. You can't start the motor unless the side stands up, which means, you know, you can't start the bike, let it idle while you're putting on your jacket and gloves and all that to get oil circulating. You have to sit on it. And then everyone's going to think you're kind of showing off, because look at that guy with his Ducati. Meantime, you're like, oh, I'm just trying to let it warm up. There's a lot of heat coming off this thing. But I mean, V-twins, they tend to do that. Any V motorcycle tends to do that. That's fine. Dare I say, this is one of the most uncomfortable motorcycles I've ever ridden. Out here in the open, it's not bad. But I had to ride it from my house to here, riding through morning rush hour in Johannesburg. It was torture. You sit really, your feet are really high up and you're stretched forward, and oh my back and oh my kidneys and oh my everything. Oh, it was torture. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm on a Ducati. I'm on the original I'm on the bike that put Ducati on the map. This is the Ducati. And I feel special right now. I feel so special riding it. It's 20 years old, more than 20 years old. It still speaks to me. I still park it on the side of the road and everyone stops and wants to look at it. I still put photos on Facebook and everyone goes, ooh, ah, this thing is so special. It makes you feel special. And that is what Ducati does. That is what Ducati needs to carry on doing.
Yes, it's still going, but that doesn't mean that this isn't one of my all-time favourite sport bikes. It's pretty extreme, as Don says, but it's beautiful, it's rare, and it rewards a good rider who's prepared to work it hard. Given that it's from a time before the dominance of electronics, it delivers a really pure kind of sport riding. Time now for a short break. We'll be back with some news.